Well, welcome back to the Thrive in Wabash County podcast studio. We are joined in the studio this evening with Chris Wetherford, and I have Alex Downard and Adam Stakeman with me tonight. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
It is so great to have you in the studio and sitting still for a minute, because it's hard to catch you. Sometimes you're on the go. I don't know. I don't know how you can do it all. And also continue to have a commitment to this community like you do, in addition to the role that you have in this community. But I wanted to go back a little bit, and I've always wondered, did you grow up here, or how did you land here?
So I don't know if I'd consider myself to be grown up
at
all yet, but I actually started out in Michigan in 1970. Long story. That's where I grew up, essentially, but then moved to Wabash, Indiana in 1983. So even though I've been in Wabash longer than anywhere else, you always think about where you were born is where you're from.
Yeah.
But of course, I consider Wabash, Indiana to be my home, born and bred. Even though I was in Michigan for a number of years, I claim Wabash.
Kind of those instrumental years that kind of shaped you into who you are. And you live here in the community.
I do.
Out in the county, in a beautiful property that you and your wonderful wife saved, right?
Yeah.
It went through a renovation, didn't it?
The house was actually built before we bought it.
Okay.
There was a house there at one time that burned down, and then we bought the neighboring property and then put a bunch of stuff on it. And yeah, it's a fun little oasis.
And just before we went live, we were talking about the children you still have at home, the three fur babies.
The fur babies, yeah. Great dogs. Good people to talk to. They never argue at all.
How long have you and Melissa been married?
Wow, 37 years. Yeah. 38 years this year, yeah.
I think we can edit out that pause so you don't get in trouble.
No, leave it in. She wouldn't be surprised at all.
We want to keep it real and authentic to the truth.
Yeah.
You have 3 children, correct?
Two children.
I was going to give you an extra
one. You mixed up the dogs and humans.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
I have
Sometimes
5.
the ratio. Yes, 5. A son and a daughter?
I have 2 boys.
2 boys.
Yeah.
I did not.
Hopefully the next one you'll get right.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're getting closer.
Batting almost 0. I got the dogs right.
Yeah.
Sometimes where it counts the most.
Yeah.
You have 2 boys, and they live close?
They do. I have a 35-year-old and a 30-year-old. Mm-hmm. 2 boys. The oldest one was born in Germany.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to get into that.
1991, and the youngest one was born in Kansas, and we ended up back in Wabash.
That's awesome. You were in Germany. I assume that was during your time with the U.S. Army?
That's correct. Yeah, I was in Germany from 88 to 1992.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when did you conclude your service with the U.S. Army?
In 1997.
1997. Because according to my correct notes that I jotted down, you were in the military quite a few years, actually.
Yeah, about 9.
9, yeah. I was writing that down. I did some snooping on your LinkedIn profile to get those details.
Taking hints from Adam Stakeman.
Took a page out.
The ultimate research background check.
This guy is so good. So I don't know what he's dug up on you. Good luck. He goes way back into the... And you talked about being with Paperworks, and that's almost 12 years. Is that correct?
Nope.
Well, Christine,
Whoa.
I'll just butt in real quick. I'll let you recap and read your notes real quick. Chris, one thing that I've appreciated about you is I've gotten to know you a little bit, and just hearing your story. Never worked for you or really with you on a specific thing in the trenches, but one thing from afar that I've observed is just your history of service and leadership and how those two things have come together to form your career. And so if you'd be willing just to share a little bit. You've been at Paperworks for longer than 12 years.
27.
27.
Well, I'm going to have to go back and double check.
It's 28.
28. But your journey at Paperworks, so you get out of the military. How do you land at Paperworks, and then what's that journey been like to where you're at today?
Yeah, so backing up a little bit, I did about 9 years in the military, and I was in Germany, I was in Colorado, I was in Kansas. I did a combat tour in Africa for 6 months. I did a tour in Haiti for 6 months, and a lot of traveling in between those different locations. And I got to that 9-year point, and it was like, you know what, one more enlistment, and I'm committed for the rest of my adult life, so to speak. And I just always had this feeling like there's greener grasses. Not that the military is a bad thing. In fact, it was the best thing I ever could have done for myself. And I encourage anybody who's looking for their direction to go. If they don't know what they want to do, it's a great place to go and get your mind started in the direction it needs to go. But when I got to that 9-year point, I'm like, well, if I'm not going to stay in, what am I going to do? Am I going to go look for greener grass? I have no regrets for anything I did in the military, and I do not regret getting out. But I got out and I just thought, you know what, there's a much bigger world here for me to do. Something you don't consider when you're in the military, we depend on those people. You know, we don't always know what that means because it's happening in the background a lot of times, but almost everything that a military person does is scripted, right? And you can do some really big things. You can feel really good about what you do, but a lot of decisions are made for you. And I always felt like I wanted to be in that position where I could make my own decisions and see what it would lead to. So I got out and I had no idea what I was going to do. In fact, paper was probably the last thing on the radar ever. I worked in engineering and I wanted to do that. And I always swore that until they built cars with wings, that's what I was going to do. It didn't work out that way. So I get this job in 1997. It was March and it was a temporary job at that time. I had no intentions on doing it, but the more I spent on the floor, the more I thought, you know what, I think I can do something here. So I worked up through a bunch of different positions, different titles, so on and so forth. And it just kept on growing from one thing to the next. And, you know, I don't think I'm done yet. You know, I worked from, I'll say, the bottom position there. And through the course of my 28 years, I worked up to be senior vice president.
And the bottom position there, I'm not sure what the official title is, but as you have given a couple different tours that I've been on, the person that has to jump down in and untangle the paper when it gets stuck. What is the title of somebody that's doing that?
So at the very bottom, it's the labor pool position. It's probably
position.
one of the hardest physical jobs a person can do at the facility, for sure. It pays great. You know, you go in there with the right mindset, as with any job, and you can do anything you put your mind to. But it's really hot when it's hot, and it's really cold when it's cold, and it's it can be a long day, but it's a great job.
And so starting there and seeing every facet of the operation to now where you're at, I mean, there's a lot more I think that we can get into and unpack just for our listeners and younger listeners to learn the life lessons you just rattled off about your journey. But sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Now, Chris, did you have college experience before you went into the military, or did you go to college after, or any at all?
During and after. So I went, I graduated in the end of May in 1988, and then I was in basic training in July. So no time for college in that little window, but I did some college while I was in the military, and I was always that guy, well, I'll finish it later, because I'm going here, and now I'm going there. And then finally I sat down and finished it after I got out.
Okay. You'd mentioned engineering, like that was what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Is that what you were doing in the military too? I mean,
yes.
Building bridges, or what kind of things were you doing?
In peacetime, it's probably one of the most civilian-oriented, they call it an MOS. It's basically your job in the military. So in the peacetime, it's the best thing you can have, in my opinion. But when combat happens, you switch very quickly from peacetime to you're carrying a rifle and you're hoping you don't get shot, which did on two different occasions. I didn't get shot, but I was in those situations on two different situations for roughly a year. But yeah, so I did that during peacetime, engineering roads, airfields, bridges, whatever, things along those lines, mostly with heavy equipment.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Paperworks is one of those really cool buildings that has a lot of history.
Oh my.
And I've been lucky enough to take a tour through the facility as well, but I'm almost terrified to rattle off my notes. I've been wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
Chris. But you have your headquartered in Pennsylvania. Paperworks is headquartered in Pennsylvania. However, you got one right so far.
Right.
But you have packaging in Kentucky, Nebraska, New York, North Carolina, Ontario, and Wisconsin.
Yes.
And then you have mills in Wabash and Ontario.
That's correct.
And this is one of the highest producing mills, correct?
It is the highest producing, yeah, for our company.
Redeemed
for sure,
myself.
yes.
You're back to 500.
You're doing
back
good.
to 500. That's
Doing
good,
good.
Christine. You clawed your way back.
Good.
Yeah.
The facility is really remarkable in the fact that it has 100% recycled goods.
Correct.
And there's a unique relationship Paperworks has with another business here in our community that you can talk a little bit about that bridge relationship.
So we like to keep as much business local as we can, just as any other proud Wabash company, which I think is just amazing, and I'm sure we'll come back to that at some point. But yeah, anytime we can take recycled materials, which is one of our main components of our inputs, we'll take it from wherever we can get it. But if we can get it in Wabash, we're really happy about that, and we do so right now. I don't know if I can mention the name or not. But
Sure.
Yeah, we buy paper from the ARC, which is good, and they collect first quality paper, which is very instrumental and helpful in our process.
And it's awesome because we use the ARC to pick up our goods and have them
Right?
recycled.
It's circular.
And to see, and then to see them, to know that you can use, and I think you buy all that they have, correct? Or,
Yes.
excuse me, Paperworks buys all that they have.
Yes.
And they do the bulk of the recycling pickup and shredding for all of Wabash County. I don't know if they go into surrounding areas. Sounds like we need to maybe have them on as a guest in the
It's
in the
great.
future.
Yeah. It's a small piece, but it's a big piece as well. It's very helpful because we're purchasing paper, raw material paper, to the tune of about 180,000 tons a year.
Is that
At
all?
that facility, yeah.
So, Chris, I was just going to ask you, for the listener that hasn't had a tour, right, gone through, talk a little bit about the operation of who Paperworks is, what you do in that process of, okay, you have this paper, then what happens?
Yes, it's a really interesting story to tell, and we're proud to tell it. And we want the people of the community to understand that it's here and be proud of it as well, because not only is 100% of our products made from curbside trash, and there's some pre-consumer, but it's all recycled trash in one form or fashion, or one fashion and form, however. Anyways, we're bringing in this trash and we're turning it into a product that is used for boxes for medical grade devices, direct food contact. Basically, any grocery store or Walmart you go in across the nation, and Canada, even overseas, you're going to find something that was made here in Wabash, Indiana. So not only is that product made from recycled goods, but it's also 100% recyclable. So it's this continuous circular type activity, keeping that stuff out of the trash or out of the landfill. I made the comment that it's 180,000 tons of raw fiber a year. That's 180,000 tons of fiber and trash that would have gone to the landfill otherwise. So it's a pretty cool story, yeah.
And have you had the chance to go through there yet, Adam?
I wouldn't say that I've done a tour, but through work, I've been in the facility a couple times. Yeah.
The other thing I learned, and maybe you already have heard this too, Alex, is you have zero water waste as well.
We don't waste. We do expel to the Wabash River.
But it's all clean, like you're constantly bringing
Yes,
water.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what's the term? You explained it to me once, very scientific, obviously.
Well, I might not have used a scientific term, but it's like a radiator.
Yeah, but it's how that you are constantly reusing that same
retention.
water.
Yeah, we try to retain it. So at one time, the Wabash Mill put somewhere around 1 million gallons of water to the river a day. And through sustain, that's a small number compared to how many millions of gallons we use a day. We bring in about 2,100 gallons a minute of recycled water to make the process work. But through, we're definitely stewards of the environment. We care about that. We're trying to send this message of sustainability and recyclability and stuff. So it's very important from us. But on top of that, we are also very closely monitored by state and government agencies, to keep us honest. Not that we need them to do so, but it's a very rigorous process to make sure whatever we put to the river is clean and safe to go in the river. We don't want any three-eyed fish or anything like that swimming around. But more importantly than that is for us to retain as much as that as we can, because any kind of solids that exist in that water, we paid for. Any kind of energy that was put into warming that water up, we paid for. So the more of that we can keep in our process, the more beneficial it is to our bottom line.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Chris, you had mentioned, I think your title, VP of Operations. Is that correct? And then Christine lists, a half dozen or more facilities. Are you overseeing just this facility here in Wabash, or do you travel?
I travel. I haven't traveled as much lately. This past year, I've been focusing a lot of my efforts on the Wabash Mill, some projects and continuous improvement things we have going on. But yes, I have oversight and interactions with all of our plants, of course. My primary plants are in Ontario and Wabash.
So if that's the case, I'm assuming that Paperworks hasn't said you have to live here in Wabash.
Correct.
Is that correct? So why do you choose Wabash as your community?
Yeah, I could talk about this, and I'm so glad you asked, right? Wabash, to me, and I've lived literally around the world. I gave a couple of examples. During my civilian life, I've done different jobs in Santa Clara, California, Middletown, Ohio. I spent about 1.5 years in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they all have kind of their own things, right? Some of those cities, the only difference between 2 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon is the sun's up or the sun's down. It never stops, right? That's cool for about a month, and it makes you really tired. You come to Wabash, and Wabash is this, we'll call it a little city, but with a very big city vibe. There's nothing you can't get in Wabash. I mean, if you want to leave and travel, not just Wabash City, I'm talking about Wabash County. If you want to leave and travel, that's fun. Get out, see the world, no doubt. But when you're thinking about checking the boxes on what the community has to offer, it's there. You have the fundamental stuff, the health, the food, the medical, the shopping, things of those natures. We check all those boxes. But I'd like to say that Wabash goes a step above and beyond from a pride perspective. If you go to a restaurant, I don't know if we can name names, but
sure.
Market. You go to Market Street or Charlie Creek or some of the others in the area, they're very nice, and they compare to some of what you might see in a very big city environment. And that's not something you see a lot of times when you go to a smaller community. And I'm very proud of it. I mean, I know we'll get into this a little bit more, but when we think about retaining talent, getting talent to the community, those are very easy things to sell. Because if somebody just goes to the internet and very generally looks and says, oh my gosh, it's a population of 10,000, what could they have? But when we get them on site and we bring them to your foundation, the Welcome Center, to tell them a lot about what the community has to offer, it's an easy sell. And, we just hired a guy from Atlanta. I won't mention his name, but, we brought somebody from Atlanta, Georgia, who's used to that big municipality. And before that, he was in Los Angeles. And now he's in Wabash, Indiana. Right?
You talk about that retention piece. Chris is really great at calling on my office and saying, we have some candidates.
Sometimes 10 minutes before you close.
We still do it. We still do it. And he's asked us to give a tour and kind of help upsell and answer those questions as a secondary voice, right? You're obviously going to be selling the positives, but they give a chance. And we have been honored to do that for you and for Paperwork several times. And so it's, again, we don't know which of the tours we've led for you that you've secured, but we're glad and honored that you ask us to walk alongside you with that retention and that attraction piece.
It's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Of course, of course. We're glad to have Paperwork's recruiting into this area.
Yeah, Chris, you guys from the jump when we launched the Wabash County Fellowship Program, which Christine and her team at Visit Wabash have been excellent partners since that was stood up, as we're moving into our third summer of that program now. And really quickly, we're one of the early employers in the county to say, yes, we're ready to lean into this, whatever this looks like. When at the time, it was just an idea more than anything when we were first getting our initial employers lined up. And the experiences that the folks have had with you all at Paperworks have been fantastic. And so I think that's just one small example of it's not just the easy things that Paperworks can get involved in, putting money to a sign at Little League, which is all of those things are important, right? Or all the different things and ways you support across the county. But it's those initiatives countywide initiatives that may be new or fresh that you're willing to lean in to the community. And without any expectation of anything in return, right? Just with that it's something positive for the county.
Yeah, I see that. If you don't mind, I want to say something on that. I see that as a great example of give and take. Now you're giving, we're taking. And maybe we're giving and you're taking as well. There's a little bit of, back and forth there. But we've always looked to bring in interns from, whether it's from Western Michigan, Middletown, Wabash. We always want to bring in young talent, particularly in the summertime, because that's when most people are out of school. Not only does it serve as a benefit to us because it helps us backfill vacations and such and maybe do special projects and stuff, but it also serves as a way for those young professionals to earn some money and to learn a profession. So it's awesome. And I'll say we've been doing that kind of stuff for a lot of years. When you brought your program forward to us, we didn't really know what to expect, especially the first year, but it's amazing. What you do for that student body or, however we want to refer to them is just incredible. We went to your events. It's awesome. If they don't feel good about the experience they've been a part of when they come here to Wabash in the summertime, I don't know what it takes to make somebody happy because it's just amazing. You guys do a very good job.
Oh, it takes a village. it takes you all as employers, Christine and her team, everyday residents, right? Adam at the YMCA talking to the students. To your point, Chris, I feel that from our students when they leave, right? It's just like everywhere they go, the farmer's market, wherever, right? It's just, it shows the best of Wabash County, right? Yeah, it's not just the employer side, not just the community side, right? But everything working together in collaboration is just an example of what exists here that doesn't exist in a lot of places.
Great.
and speaks volumes to the vision that Paperworks had prior to the Community Foundation through Imagine 185 launching the Wabash County Fellowship Program. You had that vision, but it must have been a really nice assistance to your program to know, okay, because I remember years ago working with the past HR director trying to find summer housing because sometimes your interns didn't have vehicles.
That's right.
And there wasn't this port out there as much as Paperworks needed at the time. And you really did step right up and said, absolutely, I want to be a part of these conversations. Get me in a room with Alex. We're in. Paperworks is in. And the students you've had that I've had the pleasure of meeting, the interns, have spoke so highly of the quality of internship that they have had at Paperworks Industries and the mentorship that they received from the leadership team there.
That's great.
They weren't just stuffing envelopes in a corner or sweeping up, the dirt pile. It was meaningful and it advanced their future, and that's wonderful.
I really appreciate you saying that. And if I can add to that, not only is that a great program all by itself, but by bringing that young talent in, maybe they're local, maybe they're from far away, whatever, it also helps raise the eyebrows of some of the, I'll say, high school students. We bring people in right after high school, and they ask the question, who are they and what are they doing? And it gets them interested into wanting to do more. Because even though we're a small community and we have this massive business here in town, there's still a lot of people that don't even know what we do and what we're willing to do for them and for their kids and such. It's amazing to me, but it's getting better, and programs like this help raise that awareness.
And to your point for the kid, for the community, for their kids, Chris, I mean, you all supported with the Community Foundation the Operation Change the Future campaign to raise $4 million, $2 million to go to early childhood, $2 million to go to the Imagine Early program, and you all multi-year commitment is a part of that, right?
Absolutely.
And again, that's something that I think it's important for our listeners to hear. Here, Paperworks is supporting our kids in our community today from birth through 5 years old in early childhood, and then all the way through with the Imagine Early program, now college students and high school students right out of truly the full spectrum, even before offering full-time employment opportunities, right? To how many folks do you employ at the Wabash plant here?
Yeah, 220.
Right. I mean, in the community, just really cool.
And they're high-paying roles. I mean, they're competitive wages, and even at the entry level,
Right.
that is incredible too. Some corporations, of course, none here, save that profit, and that's how they're able to give, and they take from their employees, and that is not the case with Paperworks. You're able to do both really, really well and really, really intentionally. And I think that was something that also speaks volumes to Paperworks, is that quality of life that you want the people who are doing the work there to feel more than just a clock in, clock out. They're a part of your team. Yeah.
A person can go anywhere and get a job. They really can, especially in today's market. There's vacancies everywhere.
Sure.
And if you don't offer something to those future team members that makes them want to stay there or come there, you're not going to get it. So
And definitely not going to keep them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I hear you guys talk about the fact that your Paperworks is pouring into the youth of this community through scholarship opportunities and things. Then we also talk about the internships that people are coming from outside of our area. But for your employees outside of a living wage, you're also providing other opportunities. I know that you've been instrumental in supporting employees that want to participate in the adventure series through Visit Wabash County, whether that be Run the River or Dam to Dam. You guys have thought outside of the norm and just said, hey, we want our employees to be active, participate in the community, be healthy. And so tell us a little bit about kind of the programs you've put together for your employees.
Absolutely. A lot of times it just happens. I'll be honest with you. We don't have to put a lot of effort into it sometimes because people like you have done the work. And it gets them asking the questions, what role do we play in the Dam, for example, or Run the River, or clean up? There's so many great things that are happening in Wabash. And of course, you guys go above and beyond to advertise that, the trolley times, for example. So people will come to us and ask us questions. So we stepped up, for example, we started to think, what can we do for a team member? And this was a little while back, not that long ago, but a little while back. What can we do for the team members that offers a benefit to them and their families, but also promotes health, which also helps them stay safer, right? So we partnered with the YMCA. We said, what kind of programs do you have that can we set up where a team member comes in, if they come in so many times a month or so many times a quarter, and you can give us that validation that they did, we'll pay for their membership or pay for a certain part of their membership, for example. And it's a great benefit, again, to them and their families, but also it keeps them healthier and safer at work.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
In talking about the dam to dam specifically, I know that I've ridden with some of your employees.
Yeah.
I've also ridden with you.
Yeah.
You're a local cyclist that our listeners may see out on the road.
I can see you from a distance. Yeah. You're way ahead of me. Yeah.
And I've not even got on the bike yet.
Same.
But I know you have some local cyclists that work at Paperworks, some that even complete triathlons and things with the My Team Triumph, which we've done a past episode regarding them. But how did you get into cycling?
So it's a long story. Remember, I said I graduated in 18. I didn't tell you when I was born. It was in the 70s. But anyways, I started bike racing when I was like 12 years old. And I was I always rode my bike everywhere. I mean, from as far back as I can remember, I've always loved to ride bikes. And then I got into a BMX racing circuit for a number of years. And I traveled around all over northern Indiana, a little bit of Ohio, Michigan.
Who knew you were so cool?
I am. I mean, we're just getting started here.
Just
I've
peeling
got
back
so
the
much to
onion.
share.
I guess.
Throw your research out the window.
It's gone.
But anyways, I just loved it. And then I went in the military, drifted away from that because riding a bike was replaced with road marches and running, which I loved very much as well. Don't do it so much anymore because my knees don't want me to. But yeah, so I got out of the military when I was done having to run, and I started toying around with the bike again. And then probably 6 years ago, I got serious into it for a lot of reasons. One, they make some really cool bikes. And then you see the price tag that comes along with them. And you're like, well, maybe I'll wait another year. But no, I got into it. There's a certain allure to being outside, seeing what is outside, getting some exercise, being on a really cool bike, and just being a part of something at the same time. So it's fun to ride by yourself. It's fun to ride with people, and it's super fun to participate in the events.
You ride with Ben, too. I'm sorry. Your son, Ben, rides as well, doesn't he? Does your other son ride as well?
He does not.
Okay.
No, but
That's
Ben,
probably-
he's crazy. He rides a lot.
Just to clarify for our listeners that may not have listened to the Dam to Dam episode or may not know what Dam to Dam is, when you guys are talking about riding bikes, we're talking 100 miles.
Yeah,
Right?
easily 100 miles. Yeah.
Easily.
Easily. Yeah, you caught that, too.
I
Easily.
wanted to make sure we were all on the same page.
Yeah.
It's good for you. I don't know how many miles you ended up with last year. I got about 5,500 total.
I don't track.
Good for
I
you.
don't
man.
keep track.
Me either. How about you, Alex? You keep track of your bike miles?
Yeah.
Mine's exactly 0. Better at the organizing side than me on the bike side.
We can't move past the cycling, though, without thanking you, because you do also volunteer your time with the Dam to Dam. And then you and I have spent some time together marking the routes in the past. So thank you for pointing to the community the way you do.
It's a pleasure. I
It's
love being a part of
interesting,
it.
though. You've got this senior vice president, right? And he's out there with a can of spray paint,
right.
trailing on the tailgate of a truck. I do love that heart about you, the heart that you have like that, Chris, is because your ego isn't in the way. You're like, Adam's like, I'm painting routes for, the Dam to Dam. And you're like, I'm there. How can I show up
it's
and
fun.
help? It actually is
it
pretty
is,
fun.
yeah.
I've done that. It is.
I love the amount of work that goes into that. I mean, you guys just amaze me how much you've done to make that such an official, professional event. I mean, everything from being at the YMCA and seeing the setup to the work that goes into the routes and the markings. I've had so many people come up to me and say, wow, look what you guys are doing in Wabash, Indiana. This is like something we would see in California or Florida or something like that, where millions of dollars are invested, and it's happening here. It's awesome.
More with less, right?
Yeah.
More with less.
And you were a part, you and Adam both, when you stepped on, like Adam said, you volunteered to be on the committee, but then you also volunteered to help guide us through one of the biggest changes the Dam to Dam event had ever had, which was flipping the routes and thinking through how that could work. And you gave a lot of extra time during those decision making. I know Stephanie, who I get to work with at Visit Wabash County, who now is that event director, could not thank you enough as well for the extra time you went above and beyond to give.
It's fun.
Because that's hard. I mean, for years it was all one direction, the way these multiple routes were painted, and then to flip it on its head, I still haven't gotten my grasp on it, but it took a lot of maps. Remember the dry race board, how we were going to do that.
If it wasn't for those markings on the road, I'd still be out there right now trying to find my way back.
That'd be my biggest fear about riding get lost on the county road somewhere still, learning my way around.
Yeah, for sure.
Chris, personally and professionally, we've touched on a couple different things through your career, your service in the community. Advice for a young person today that's in high school, maybe they're in college growing up, thinking about what are they going to do next? What are some of those nuggets that aren't necessarily maybe career advice, but just life advice and things that you would help a young person that you wish now, looking back, you would have known at that age?
So it's important, I think, for anybody, particularly a younger person, to know going into a situation that they might not approach it the same way as a seasoned individual. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of things you just don't know until you live, right? Like our wisdom and the things that we know today are mostly because we've experienced them, where a younger person may not have had that same opportunity yet.
For sure.
So I always like to give the advice that just because you can't see it yet, or maybe you don't understand it the way the guy next to you does, just know there's an answer out there, and never slow down, never settle for anything less than what you can visually see in your mind, so to speak. Yeah. There's no limits to a person's capability. You know, if you see it, if you dream it, you can do it. It sounds a little bit cheesy, and I know it's on t-shirts somewhere, but if you can dream it, you can do it. That's all there is to it. Yeah. So I always give that advice, you know, don't ever look at a problem, okay, because there's nothing you can do about a problem that you can see. It's already happened. You cannot undo that problem at that point. It's already happened. But there's a lot of things you can do to make it so that you never experience that problem again. You know, I'd use a couple of cheesy terms like root cause failure analysis. When something happens, you can't make it unhappen. So let's figure out what we have to do to never let it happen again. Let's train everybody we know, and let's put it on a document. So regardless of who's here on the bus at the time, they can research, look at this document, and know how to do the job the same way. So we could go down this path all day long. I love the philosophical speeches, but yeah.
But you visualizing that, so you're in the military, and you thought that there was grass greener of being able to be a part of making decisions, right? Be a leader that's making those decisions, not just following orders. Then you are at the bottom in the labor pool, at Paperworks, untangling when the paper's stuck, in inclement weather, whatever the scenario is. At what point in that journey did you visualize your career and where you're at today?
So it was probably before either of those things happened. Honestly, I started thinking about these things, and I know this isn't a toot your own horn session, but you know, just sharing a little bit about myself. Again, coming back to the vision, you know, once you put it in your head, even if you don't make a conscious effort to do that one thing every single day, chances are you're inadvertently at least working towards that because that vision is in your head, right? I also believe that regardless of your qualifications, your aptitude, your role, your place in life, there's a seat on the bus for everybody. Mm-hmm. And whether you're at the front of the bus or the back of the bus doesn't make you a better or a worse person. Right. We need people to sit in every single seat on that bus, right? So approaching situations like that from a young age, understanding that, hey, I'm either going to be a part of this or I'm not, you know, helped guide me to where I've gotten today. If I can just share a quick story, when I got to Africa in May of 1993, I thought I was a tough guy. You know, I was already in the military for 5 years. I'd seen a lot of stuff. I'd lived in Germany, went on a lot of hardship tours when I was in Germany. But until you actually expose yourself to a situation where you know somebody is trying to make you not exist, you really can't be prepared for what thought process has to come next, right? So I was 23 years old when I got there, and I had to make a very quick decision. I was either going to be alive at the end of this, or I was going to be another statistic. Oh my God. And once you put that thought in your head, you go with it, and you don't give yourself the option of looking at it any other way, because the moment you do is when failures start to happen. You've just compromised your focus. So hopefully that makes sense.
Oh. Yeah. Whoa.
That last
talk about motivation.
5 minutes. Yeah. We need to cut that up, Christine, into a segment there.
Just itself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really good. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, important. We start with a lot of you, Chris. You give, and I know you're going to share that across the generosity of Paperworks. But you're the leader. local leader in that decision-making capacity here. Why do you think it's important, though? You're obviously leading by example. What's the importance in that in supporting your community? Why do you, Chris Wetherford, why do you, as Senior Vice President of Paperworks, why do you think that is important to give back to support?
So a very little amount of it has to do with my title, right? I feel very gracious that I've had the opportunity to work into the position I am. So maybe I can make some of those decisions that maybe somebody in another position could not. But something that anybody who knows me or has worked with me or around me over my entire adult life, I'm a huge supporter of the community for a lot of reasons, okay? So take the mill, for example. 99% of everybody that works at that mill is from Wabash County, okay? We've already talked about the great wage that these team members get to do their job. Where do they spend their money? Yeah. In Wabash. What does that do for Wabash? It helps support the businesses in Wabash. If those businesses are thriving, that means their team members are thriving. They're getting a paycheck, and they're spending their money in Wabash. And it just continues to grow and circulate and circulate. So I'm a very big believer in that circular type activity. And to be honest,
compounding momentum.
Yeah, exactly. And I forgot what your question was.
Well, so in addition to recognizing right away we've got to compensate our people well, then why is it good for our company and then you as an individual to give back to that community?
Your community is a big part of why you have what you have. So those people didn't come into the paper industry wanting to make paper. Their journey and what they were going to do in life started at their house and what they were exposed to. And what they were exposed to at their house is dependent on what their parents and such were exposed to in their community. What kind of programs did the community have to offer them? And in a lot of cases, they were given back at the same time. But when you think about the fundamentals again, like the churches, the restaurants, the stores, all of that stuff is very important. We don't think about why it's important. It's great to be able to go to a store and buy some food. Yeah. But the bigger story behind that is that we have a place in Wabash you can go and buy food. Yeah. So it's just this complete give and take all the time. And we want to be a part of that. We want to promote that growth. We want to support those foundations that promote that growth and just keep it going in that one direction.
You do, though. You're always looking for ways to bring the community into Paperworks and then give more opportunity, more information to your employees. You're like, hey, I would love to have our printed trolley times.
You reference it. Yeah.
Like, I'd like to give those to all of my employees. He saw and he's like, I'd love to share those through Paperworks. So now we deliver those quarterly. You're like, we've got all of these TVs. What information do you want to share about what's going on in our community? And so thank you for having the heart to invite us in to share what's going on so that your employees can feel a larger stake in the community that they live in so that they don't miss out on opportunities and feel even more connected. It's always fun to walk alongside someone who will dream just as big as you want to dream about what could be. And I really appreciate that about you, Chris. I really do.
Thank you.
I mean it. You got any other thoughts or questions for Chris before we kind of get to the tail end of things? Adam?
Can't think of anything.
Alex?
No, that last point, Chris, I think it's really good. It all takes all those pieces and parts working together, right? You take any one of those things and Wabash becomes more like any other place, right? And a lot of places have a lot of those things, but the human capital that we have that are leading those companies, leading those organizations, and all of those pieces working together, it is that cycle, right? That each supports one another, that supports the overall whole of the community, and it's really important.
Well, I'm going to go the other way, and not to dive negative, but you do have a unique perspective. As a major employer, what do you recognize as one of the largest challenges for talent attraction to our area?
So before anybody gets to know the area, a lot of times they'll think, it's just too small for me. I want more, but there's nothing more you need. But a lot of times people don't know that until you can actually get them here. And it's all about what we're doing right now, for example, getting the message out there, whether it's through a trolley time sitting at a desk when a salesperson comes in and says, hey, what's that? Yeah. And we can say, hey, that's one of our local organizations that's promoting the, Wabash Adventure Series, for example. And those messages grow. They just take off and people start hearing about it and it just turns into this really big thing.
We always say everything starts with a visit. We know once we get them here, I feel like we can get them hooked, especially when
100%.
they see all that there is to see and do here. When you look to the future of your role in this community, and we talked, you have 2 grown children, 3 wonderful dogs, a wonderful wife. What does that legacy look like for you for Paperworks in the future?
For Paperworks, well, I don't see retirement anytime soon for me.
Okay.
Maybe.
Great,
I don't know.
good for us.
I didn't know if she was asking you about retirement, running for mayor. I
Yeah,
didn't know where we were
no.
going there.
We're just going to see where it takes us. That's
Yeah.
where we are with this episode.
I'm going to bring this guy water when he's the mayor. That's my goal in life.
Right?
I don't live in the
And-
city.
Let the record show that for anybody that's just listening and not watching, that Chris pointed at Alex, not me.
Yeah, or me, of course.
It's just because I can't hardly see Adam. But no, honestly, so as we talk about community growth and sustainability, our company has that same interest. We don't want to go backwards. And if you want to be competitive in our market, you have to reinvest in your market. If you're going to reinvest in your equipment, you have to reinvest in your team members. So I'm going to say probably short term and long term is about how do we remain and continue to be a big player in the CRB market. CRB is coated recycled box board. We're already the 3rd largest producer in North America, which is great. It's great to say that. First place, not everybody can see my hands, but first place is here, second place is here, third place is over here. But we're there. We're a contender. We're a big producer. Between our 2 mills, we're producing about 260,000 tons a year of recycled paper from trash, right? And we want to continue to do that as safely and with the highest quality in mind.
Mm-hmm. And what about for you, though?
Oh, wait.
Where do you?
I feel like this is a trick question.
No,
You have openings?
When you look back and you
Podcast
think, gosh, this is really what I hope that the community remembers about me, Chris Wetherford. What is that for you? That you've loved it here, that you believed in it. What do you want people to think about for you?
So if I can talk about culture a little bit.
Please.
We have gone through a massive transition in the last 7 years, we'll say. If we go back to 2019, 2020, the world changed, right? And when that change happened, we were in survival mode. I don't like survival mode unless somebody's shooting at you. You want to survive that, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have a basis in your community, in your job, in your life. Now, what you do from that basis going forward is continuous improvement, hopefully. You want to do more, but you got to have that base there, right? And I feel like we got in such a survival mode in 2019 and 20 that we changed our standards. Instead of talking about how can we do things better, it was how can we make it through to tomorrow?
Wow.
Where we had, it's not just paperwork, because everybody dealt with this, right?
Yeah.
We went from a situation where we wouldn't consider running with less than 220 people to, man, I think we can do it with 180, and it doesn't make somebody bad or good. It's just that during those times, things like what the facility upkeep looked like, those became more of a challenge because we just wanted people to show up and work. And the downside to that is new standards become created at that point. So anybody you hired during that time never had the opportunity to see what it looked like pre-2019, for example. Yeah. Again, not good or bad. It's opportunity for us to get better, but we still have some of that stuff from 7 years ago that plagues us today. And the guys and gals at the mill are some of the best people, some of the hardest working people I've ever seen. I know we'll get back to that standard, but that's probably one of the bigger challenges that we've dealt with. Mm-hmm. But going forward, again, we're investing. I'd love to throw some dollars out there, but I shouldn't. I'm going to tell you that there's many millions of dollars a year spent in not only upkeep, but also growth that is occurring at the paper mill. We care about it not only for our business, but when you think about the impact the wages of the team members at this mill have on the community, it's necessary for community growth and success as well. So we want to make sure we do our part in keeping not only our company healthy, but also the community.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Absolutely. Work culture is critical.
It is.
Yep.
We talk about that.
Chris, if you're thinking about the community as a whole, Wabash County, the City of Wabash, what is something that we have to get right over the next decade to see Wabash continue to grow and not become like a lot of other rural communities where they just kind of fade away.
Yeah, I love this. So if you pass out a survey to anybody, what is the number one thing that people are going to come back with and say, we got to do better at this? The number one thing.
Oh, gosh, I always hear housing, but I don't know if that's just because I'm too close to it.
Nope. That's after thing.
Ooh.
It's communication.
Oh.
It's number one on every survey that you throw out there. How can we do better? You got to get better at communication. And I'm not saying you got to get better at communication. This is amazing. You guys are clearly doing your part here. But I really feel like we have to get out in front of people more to help people understand what this community has to offer and how their role in this community plays towards the success. I mean, I commend you guys.
I feel like we're in church because he's just starting to preach it.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
You
go.
Yeah, here we go. If you could see my feet, I'm dancing in my
Me
chair.
too.
Yeah. You guys have gone above and beyond to send that message, and it honestly means the world to me. And there's a lot of people out there that are interested in doing it. We have to continue to do things like this to help people understand what they have right in front of them in this community. And, you know, you develop this habit of wanting to be a part of it, and that habit becomes a trend, and suddenly that great habit becomes as common as tying your shoe. They want to give to the community, they want to be a part of the community, and they want to bring their ideas forward with continuous improvement. So that to me, it's about getting that message out there, long story short.
And what I heard you say, or what I didn't hear you say, was the message outside of this community. What I heard you say was the message inside of our community, which I've heard Alex say over and over again as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's great the more you can do to get it out there, but why not, utilize some of the resources we have by educating the people who are in our community, because they're going to carry it out. They're going to carry it out. I have family from all over the United States, and every one of those family members has came to Wabash and spent time here. And we're impressed by what Wabash had to offer. The streets are clean. They come through the downtown. They're like, wow, your downtown is active. You don't always see that in a small community. It's great to hear that. And guess what? When they leave, they go back to their towns that they're from, and they share what they've experienced when they come to Wabash, Indiana. And that's all it takes.
Yeah. Social media
start spreading.
Social media is hard, right? Because the negativity breeds more negativity in terms of the folks that are frustrated, and then a lot of times, rightfully so, right? Yep. Like the day the streets aren't clean, or the pothole, or whatever the project that goes wrong, right? Yep. The people that are complaining about that, all that's going to do is lead to more negative things, right?
Correct.
But the exciting opportunity in that, and the positive part in that, is with our kids at home, with listening to this podcast, whatever format is, the positivity builds in the same way. And I would argue we have the resources so it builds quicker than the negative stuff
100%.
does, right? And that's one thing that communities don't have the luxury to. But again, the next 10 years, right, that critical piece, I appreciate you sharing the communication. I think that's right. I mean, it's more pouring into more positivity, because that breeds that momentum. And even if perception is positive about things, more positive about things, that's going to continue to build more positive things in the community, right?
Yeah. You multiply with people.
That's right. That's right.
And that is at the heart of this podcast, is the more people we have sit in the chair you're sitting in right now, it echoes, it ripples on a large scale, that it's not just the mayor or the council or the commissioners who are leading this charge. They have a big responsibility, but it's everyday stakeholders who get to make this choice. And we get to hear the stories of people who show up in all different ways. And you put all of those different ways together, and all the stories we have been blessed to tell for the last almost full year of stories. It is remarkable and humbling, Chris, because it does feel good. Yeah. And we want everybody, we say this, we want everybody to listen to this podcast. And you know what? Maybe if not listening about Paperworks Industries is your jam, that's okay. You'll have plenty of other episodes about education. We've got a great episode dropping about the Learn More Center soon, or upcoming the Northeast
Indiana Water Trails.
If you want to talk about outdoor sports and rec, there's so many great people doing so many great things. And so if it's not this episode, listen to one of our other ones or give us ideas of what you want to hear. But we want to communicate outwardly. And like you have said time and time again, Alex, starts in our own backyard.
It does.
You know, if we can't get these people rowing in our same direction, that's where we've got to focus, that communication.
Well said.
You know, life is made full of millions of little choices. And we got to hear just a few of the first few million that you've made that have led you to where you are today. One of those million little choices you made was to walk along and step in and support Destination Wabash County, which operates this podcast, Chris. You were said, I'm in. And you never wavered since that very first day. And this podcast has shined a light in a different way in our community outside of the normal marketing and communication routes that people take. But alongside of Paperworks Industries, we have some other great individuals, the Sandra Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Lisa Gilman Investment Fund, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, the City of Wabash County, Visit Wabash County, who have all graciously given to Destination Wabash County to make this podcast possible. So we were thankful for that. Any last minute thoughts, gents?
No, Chris, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I look forward to sharing some miles with you this summer.
Thanks. Same to you. Appreciate what you guys do.
I'm not as excited about the miles, but maybe a bourbon or two.
Hey, I can help.
Yeah, you got top shelf taste in bourbon. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here. Until next time, I'm Christine Floor.
I'm Adam Stakeman.
And I'm Alex Downard.
And this is the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. We'll catch you next time.